In terms of some of the specifics here, this meeting potentially in Budapest, of course, is notable because it comes as the president is trying to say that on the heels of that meeting they had in Alaska, which, remember, didn't produce any immediate end to the war in Ukraine, he is trying to say that perhaps another meeting could be more fruitful. But it does depend, we know, on whether President Zelensky also agrees with that and what kind of communication, discussion, or meeting between Presidents Zelensky and Putin could ultimately take place, because that has been the crux of all of this.
So for almost 2 weeks now, Tomahawk missile delivery to Ukraine has been the main topic in the media. This morning, there were rumors that this Tomahawk delivery wouldn't be successful. Now, as at the time I am recording this video, there is official confirmation from multiple media houses that this Tomahawk delivery to Ukraine is not going to happen. By the way, those of you who watch my videos, you wouldn't be surprised, because I have told you guys multiple times that I don't see this whole thing happening. And even if it will happen, it's not going to make any big difference. Looking at the danger of sending this Tomahawk missiles, I think it doesn't make any sense. For the sake of those of you who didn't watch my previous videos, I told you guys that Tomahawk missile system is a cruise missile, and we have nuclear version of Tomahawk and we have conventional version of Tomahawk. Most or almost all cruise missiles can be equipped with nuclear warheads. So if if Tomahawk missile system is launched in the air, it is impossible for you to determine that it is a conventional or nuclear weapon. And looking at Russian nuclear doctrine, if any country launches nuclear weapon at them, they have to respond immediately. So looking at the danger in sending this Tomahawk missile to Ukraine, I clearly realized that it was not going to happen. I just realized that, you know, these guys were bluffing. And this confirmed what CNN said yesterday. I told you guys that CNN spoke about this even before this happened. I believe that they got the intelligence that it was not going to happen. They knew what was going to happen ahead of time. So they decided to boycott this whole Tomahawk delivery system to Ukraine because Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin will be meeting in Hungary. Well, this is also a big blow to the West. Once again, Russia and America is going to meet, but this time around, not on Russian soil or on American soil. It is going to happen right in Europe, and Europeans are not going to be part of the meeting. Quite interesting. So according to Bloomberg, Ukraine is not happy with this decision because they pinned all their hopes and belief that these Tomahawk missiles were coming in. Russia continued to target Ukraine electrical infrastructure. So the Ukrainians were hoping that these Tomahawk missile systems will arrive. Then they will also reciprocate the same thing. They can, you know, launch deeper into Russian territory. At the moment, the only part of Russia that the Ukrainians can target, or they continue to target, is Belgorod and Kursk. The reason is Belgorod and Kursk is very close to Ukraine. Apart from Belgorod and Kursk and Crimea, some part of Crimea, yes, these are all closer to Ukraine. Even Crimea, I don't need to explain to you guys. You guys already know it was once part of Ukraine, but the Russians decided to take it back in 2014. So these territories are very close to Ukraine, and they continue to launch drones into these territories. Apart from that, Ukraine don't have any weapon currently that can that they can strike deeper into Russian territory. So they pinned all their hope on this whole Tomahawk missile system. So according to Bloomberg, the Ukrainians, especially Zelensky, is very, very, very disappointed. I believe you guys want me to continue giving this update. It's very, very challenging when you give these updates and you don't see any progress. So the best way to help me continue creating these videos is to hit on the like button. It's very, very important. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe. Still on Bloomberg, according to Bloomberg, Ukraine and America is discussing a possible gas deal. We all know what is happening in Ukraine currently. Russia continues to target Ukraine electrical infrastructure, which I've reported here multiple times, that even in this winter, because of gas, the Ukrainians will be forced to use firewood. Not according to me, according to their own officials. I reported it here about 2 or 3 days ago. If you remember, let me know down in the comment section. So gas has become a big problem for the Ukrainians. Now, America is trying to fill in this Ukrainian gap. They want to give them gas. In exchange, you know Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam doesn't do anything for free. In exchange, Ukraine will allow America to transfer oil through their gas pipelines to Europe, which I am a bit confused because the transfer of this gas, not gas, the oil, yes. The oil have to pass through the Black Sea. And currently, when you look at the Black Sea, the Russians control the Black Sea, majority part of the Black Sea. All this Ukrainian side of the Black Sea, Odessa, is controlled completely by the Russians. So how is America going to transfer this oil? And they are talking about Hungary, which is a bit strange to me because Hungary currently have an oil deal with the Russians about 10 billion US dollars or 10 billion euros, something like that, around 10 billion euros. So the Hungarians cannot just abandon Russian oil and all of a sudden, you know, take in American oil. That is going to be a big challenge for the Hungarians. I don't believe Hungary is even going to quit Russian oil. So the whole point is Uncle Sam is desperately trying to move Europe dependence on Russian oil, and they want to fill in the gap. As we speak now, Europe continue to buy a lot of oil and gas from the Russians, right? They come in the media, they talk blah, 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 blah. But the point is they continue to buy more Russian oil. Now, Uncle Sam is trying to change this. They want to fill in the gap. But the point is Uncle Sam can never fill in the gap because, one, oil and gas from Russia is very quality. According to experts, not according to me. According to experts, Russian oil and gas is very, very quality. Number two, the rate. Oil and gas from Russia is very cheap. Now, I am wondering how Uncle Sam is going to build a gas pipeline all the way from Uncle Sam to Europe. Or they are going to deliver them in cargo. I don't know how they are going to do this, but the point is, whichever way they try is going to be expensive. We've already seen it. Whatever Uncle Sam tried selling to Europe, it was very expensive. At the point, Europeans started complaining. Emmanuel Macron even came out and said they thought that Uncle Sam was their ally and they were going to help them. But what they realized was Uncle Sam was taking advantage of the whole situation and they were exploiting Western Europeans. At a point, I hope you guys remember back in 2023 or so, France president went to Uncle Sam and he spoke with Joe Biden. When he arrived, he was very angry. You know, they spoke about a lot of things. But the whole point is, Uncle Sam took advantage of the whole situation and they were exploiting Europe. So, let's all wait and see what happened. Power outages across Ukraine continue. So now, it's kind of like the officials are basically giving the Ukrainians a timetable. Now, they report ahead of time. They tell, you know, the regions which will be affected by the power outages. So they inform them ahead of time that, hey, there won't be light here in the east. There won't be light here in the west within the next 1 hour. This was completely a reckless decision by the Ukrainians to play this whole gas cat and mouse game with the Russians. Russia remains one of the highest gas reservoirs in the world. So this was basically a reckless decision by the Ukrainians to start this war. I remember when the whole thing began, I told you guys that this was very, very reckless. Now, look at the outcome in Ukraine. The Russians are doing fine. There's no power outages across Russia. The only part of Russia that is affected is, you know, only Belgorod, Kursk, and Crimea. And most of these territories that are affected by these power outages are where they are fighting. So obviously this part will be affected. But apart from that, Russia is doing fine. There's no power outages in Russia. Their companies continue to function well. So this was a bit reckless in my opinion because they started this whole thing. You can't blame the Russians for targeting Ukrainian gas because Ukrainians started this problem. And now they are paying the consequences of this reckless decision. I never thought a day like this will come. So the new Syrian government is asking for Vladimir Putin help. I thought the new Syrian government was a pro-Western guy. I believe he was because during the time they took out Assad, this guy allowed Western journalists to come in. This whole thing was reported by, Western journalists, and clearly you could see that this guy was backed by the West. They took advantage of the war in Ukraine and realized that the Russians couldn't fight in two fronts. For the sake of those who don't know what is happening, back in 2014, the Russians decided to go to Syria and help the Syrian government, right? Vladimir Putin himself spoke about it. He said the reason he was defending Assad is because they don't want a situation whereby the world will witness what happened to Muammar Gaddafi to happen again. So the Russians went in to defend Syria government, which was the Assad government. But unfortunate for the Assad government, although the Russians won the war completely in Syria, but the war came back again when the Russians started fighting in Ukraine. So the West realized that the Russians couldn't fight in two war fronts, so they decided to take advantage of this and also launch another war again in Syria. Russia couldn't go in to defend Assad. So later, the Russians decided to go in and allow Assad to exile to Russia. So the Russians received Assad in Russia just to avoid him from being targeted like the way they targeted Muammar Gaddafi. The situation in Syria became very, very complicated because the main army that was fighting in Syria was the Wagner group. And I hope you guys remember what happened in the Wagner group. Back in 2023 in Belgorod, at a point, we were told that Prigozhin was trying to overthrow Vladimir Putin, but it didn't happen. And to avoid this whole situation from happening again, Vladimir Putin decided to incorporate the Wagner group into the Russian military. So the Wagner group couldn't operate independently again. And the main point is, the main guy that was operating the Wagner group, Prigozhin, is no more. So the whole situation in Syria is very, very complicated. So today or recently, Israel is threatening Syria, invasion of Syria. And I thought this guy will go to the West, will seek for help from the West. But to my surprise, he's asking for help from Vladimir Putin. I'm quite confused. By the way, a lady once told me that there is no permanent enemy in politics. I didn't understand this statement, but I believe that I now understand this statement. By the way, let's wait and see what happens next. I'm quite interested. I want to know what happens next. Something interesting is happening in the Middle East. By the way, if you don't know, back in the 6 Days War, the Israelis took Sinai. They took the Golan Heights. Now, the Golan Heights belongs to Syria, and up to date, Israel has refused to give the Golan Heights back to Syria. They still control the Golan Heights. Quite interesting. Let me know what you think about America's decision not to send these Tomahawk missiles again. And those of you who are interested in Middle East stories, please let me know what you think about the Syrian crisis. By the way, thank you very much for your endless support. Shalom. See you guys in the next episode.